segue theory.
Yeah, so nobody's saying that. Nobody seems to be saying that Allegan committed the murders by himself, but some people have said, like, for example, the Weekly World News thinks that he was sort of an evil sidekick to Pete Harm.
Kind of sidekick?
Yeah, that kind of sidekick.
We done it.
Actually,
we done it.
So they knew each other. They had worked together. They were both doctors. Allegan was a general practitioner, and they had worked together for about a year and a half at a hospital in Stockholm. And so they knew each other. I don't think they were besties, but they had known each other from work and stuff. I think
they might have been blood brothers.
Oh, I think they were. Well, ooh.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Come on. Let's get back. Let's get back to serious land.
So, if you remember that article I mentioned a few minutes ago, Thomas Allegan is the friend who was invited over to feast on human flesh and blood.
Right.
He was the dude. Yeah, and it's funny, in the article he managed to misspell not just his first name, but his last name also.
They misspelled it?
They misspelled both names.
Oh,
first and last. Yeah.
Well, that's a way to avoid getting a charge of slander. It wasn't you we were talking about.
Yeah, we weren't talking about. I'm kind of surprised they didn't get charged or sued for slander.
I bet you they did. Their lawyer said, don't spell that guy's name correctly.
Maybe that's what it was.
So people will correct it in their minds, but we cannot directly be accused of doing that.
Yeah. Well, now,
then again, how the Weekly World News isn't constantly getting slander suits, I have no idea.
Magic.
That boy, at this point, should own that place.
Yeah.
Magic. Mayhem. Anyway.
I honestly don't know. That's a question for another episode. But,
so why does Thomas
Allegan? Well, he was, when Teat was arrested in 84, the papers published that a young doctor had been arrested as a suspect.
Okay.
Thomas Allegan was separated from his wife, Christina, at this time, and they had a young daughter who was about 2 years old, who is unnamed in the press, so we will call her, what do you think?
Jane?
Yeah, Jane Doe?
Sally.
Jane Doe. Sally?
Jane Doe.
You like Jane Doe?
Jane Doe.
Jane Doe works.
I'll call her Jane Doe. So they were, as I said, separated. Says, these things often can turn a little bit ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, separations and divorces? Oh, hell yeah.
Especially when children are involved, unfortunately.
So that'll notch it up.
Yeah, so she had been claiming that Thomas had molested Jane Doe, the daughter, and he had been investigated for this.
And I'm sorry, how old was the daughter again?
She was, I think at the time that the actual allegations were made, she was about a year and a half old.
Okay.
And then by the time...
17 months, 18 months?
Yeah, 17, 18 months. And I think by the time that Teat was arrested in December 1984,
so that would have been
she would have been about
maybe
years. Two. Okay. About two.
But yeah, sorry. I'm sure you said that before. I just...
Yeah.
To clarify,
let's be totally clear.
He was accused of molesting his 2-year-old daughter.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
And
they found no evidence of it, by the way.
Yeah, police investigated. They decided there was no evidence. They decided the charges were unfounded, and then they decided...
And it was just another ugly divorce.
Yeah, no further. They decided to take no further action. But then, after Teat got arrested, Christina hears that a young doctor had been arrested in this incredibly notorious murder. She called the police and just said, "Hey, did you arrest Teat Harm? Is he the guy?" And the police apparently confirmed it.
Wow, that's a good. Wow, they are just really bad 1,000 here. There's so many things that go. Wow, okay.
Yeah, because apparently...
I don't know. I mean, like, a little bit, I feel like if somebody called and... Like, if I called the police...
It is an investigation, and she has, as a public citizen, she has no... There's no reason to disclose that to her until such time as she is proven to be involved.
Sure, fair. But, like, if I called and I was like, hey, did you arrest Steve in this? They would probably be
Why are you asking? What is your involvement? What's your relationship? Like, there would be a whole bunch of stuff, and you'd have to prove good reason.
But maybe she said, well, I know his accomplice, and they said, then yes.
Oh. Yeah, maybe that's what it was. Is maybe
because if I called up and I said, hey, did you arrest Steve for this? And they were like, why do you know? And I was like, well, because I know Joe the accomplice. They were like, then yeah, we did. Who's Joe?
Well, since we've left Logic Town, I'm going to take a nap. Let me know when we get back into the real world.
We're about a page and a half away.
Whatever the circumstances of this whole thing were, the police essentially confirmed it to her, and we don't know. Like I said, Devin she might have called in and said, "I've got information you might need," and yada yada. We don't know.
So she fingers the ex, as being involved.
Yeah, and it turns out she had met Teet a few years before when Tomas brought him home for dinner, and apparently she had taken an instant dislike to him, and so she was not
because he asked if he could bathe in the meatloaf.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, or maybe he spent the whole dinner just talking about strangulation or something. I'm not saying that he necessarily had a winning personality.
No.
But
probably not if this many people didn't like him.
Yeah, and I don't think it was right in December '84, but not too long after that, Christina went to the police and said that her daughter, Jane Doe, who was 18 months old at the time of the murder, was saying stuff that indicated to her that she was present when Catherine's body had been cut up. And it was cut up by
this
Thomas
part of the story
Algren.
is this thing just keeps going further and further off the rails for me. Like just
yeah, I mean this is not this investigation did not really go well. I would say
yeah, and it's hard for me with like 2-year-olds. They say, I mean, like there's that show, kids say the darndest things.
They repeat what mommy and daddy say all the time.
But it's not necessarily that. It's just like there's a lot of, and we haven't done shows on this per se because I know you
for good reason
feel about this situation. But like, there's a lot of stuff that kids say that like would lead one to believe that like reincarnation is real, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes like kids are talking like at length and in like incredible detail about stuff that they should have no understanding of whatsoever. But that doesn't mean that they have actually
understanding.
Right. That doesn't mean they've actually experienced that in their current life. Kids have a lot of active imaginations, or maybe it is this weird whatever. I mean, we at some point could probably talk for at least 3 hours about what that sort of thing means, but I'm not willing to ever say that like what a 2-year-old is saying accurately reflects what they've experienced in life.
No, probably not.
You know?
No, probably not. But
you can't use that as testimony and proof.
No,
ever.
most of it's just jibber jabber.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of the way I would look at it too. But apparently the police kind of bought it. Yeah, apparently they. By the way. According to Jane Doe, the child, Teet Harm, was also present. It was not just Thomas.
It was also
Thomas and Teet who were chopping up the body.
Okay.
So the double T's were cutting her up.
Yeah,
and the little girl was there.
The little girl was there. Yeah. And I'm not sure what to make of it, except I think this is probably the ugliest divorce of all time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think
probably not the ugliest, but it's one of the.
Yeah, it's up there. Yeah. Or maybe Christina sincerely believed that she was accurately reporting everything that her daughter was saying. But again, because of her age, I really have a hard time believing it.
Again, I really feel like she was saying things that probably led her daughter to repeat things that spun this whole thing off.
That's the problem with kids and this kind of thing is often
it's hard to tell, especially at 2.
Often it's planted.
Or it's maybe not, but I mean...
Unintentionally a lot of times.
Yeah. But I mean, like, even adults can be misled. You know, you can say to an adult, like, well, didn't you see that person with a white hat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we talked, again,
and
this
suddenly,
is like a great...
Oh, yeah, the guy had a white hat.
Yeah, this is a great example, again, of like what we were talking about in the last episode.
Implanted
with Amy, it was like, you know, you're going around and you're saying, did you see this girl? You know, she might have been with bikers. She was a vegetarian. And people like, oh, yeah.
I remember she did buy vegetarian
Yeah, and she was with 2 bikers. That's weird, right? I mean, human memory is such a weird thing.
Oh, it is.
Especially at 2 years old.
It is.
Okay,
I definitely misremember stuff. But anyway,
so we've got a 2-year-old girl. So how do they prove that, or how do they decide that what this kid is saying?
Well, they enlisted a child psychologist and a child psychiatrist to examine her and listen to her testimony and stuff. And they apparently decided their professional opinion was her evidence was credible.
Okay.
Now, how they arrived at that conclusion, I don't really know.
But I tend to, I mean, you know.
But, you know, that's...
I know you guys don't, but I do.
Yeah, I'm staying out of the rest of that.
That's not enough not enough evidence.
Wasn't there some, like, photo development
There was
situation,
another thing
too?
that happened, but this didn't happen until fall '87 when this couple came forward.
So this is, wait. 87. The murder happens in 84.
Yeah, so 3 years after.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 years after.
I just want to make sure I got that timeline right.
Yeah, and they owned this Photoshop that was, I think, it's somewhere near the Karolinska Institute. And they came forward and told the police that they had developed a roll of film and printed photographs. The roll turned out to have images of a chopped up human body on it, which is...
When did they say they developed that film?
That would have been around like summer 1984.
So about the time.
Yeah, right about that time. They said that they and their employees were appalled and disgusted by the
But they
entire
did it
thing.
anyway.
But they didn't report it to the police.
Why?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's my first thing. Is if you are especially when you're in the days of analog film processing, God, we're doing this again.
Yeah.
It's a thing that it was a known fact that if you saw, oh wait, you're making porn, we have to report you.
Yeah.
Oh look, you have what appears to be a dead human being. We have to report you. You just don't go. So that was really gross, and don't do that again.
Yeah.
Like that's not the way that works.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly why they just sort of let this thing slide and didn't tell the cops. Apparently, what happened is it was two young men brought the roll of film in for development and told them that there's going to be some unsettling stuff on these pictures, but this is part of a top secret investigation. So please don't tell anybody, and please just don't look at the pictures or anything like that. And there's no need to call the police, And so, from their point of view, if it would have been top secret if they had actually killed somebody and chopped up the body, right? That'd be a big secret I'd want to keep.
Oh yeah.
Of course, I wouldn't take the film to be developed either.
No, I learned how to develop my own film.
I feel like police labs usually have people who are capable of that. That's crazy.
That's the other thing is what tops. Exactly. Yeah, you would think that they would have their own lab if it was actually a police investigation.
Boy, I'm not a fan of any of.
Yeah, you go down to the police lab. Hey Hans, so this is film we shot from this scene. Can you develop it for us? Okay, no big deal. Yeah. Hans doesn't give a crap because he sees that stuff all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't go to the public photo mart.
Also, Hans knows you work for the police.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He knows that you work there.
Yes.
The only thing I can think of is maybe you decided that your department is full of corrupt cops and so you got to go like off the grid to get this stuff taken care of. That makes no sense.
No.
We never heard from these guys exactly any stories about like why they had to go outside normal channels to get this film developed. They never said anything about that, so we can discount that. So of course, at least did. And so they put I think Thomas Olgan and I don't know if they put Teet Harm in the same lineup at the same time or different lineups or what, but apparently they picked Thomas Olgan out of the police lineup as one of the few young men who had brought the film in.
Wow.
And apparently they also picked out Teet, although they weren't quite as sure about him.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Had there been news coverage of these guys?
I'm sure there have been plenty.
Okay, well, there we go.
One of the things but apparently this would say, so this is what they've got for their case. They've got a little kid who was 18 months old, who
IDs the whole thing,
and then they've got these people that say they brought in this roll of film, and so
5 years later,
that's about
3 years later,
that's about the gist of their case here. But they were arrested October 1987. They were convicted. Verdict was thrown out because of jury misconduct, and
because it was a media circus, and they were all blabbing to the media.
They were talking to the press when they shouldn't have been, and so there was essentially kind of a mistrial. I don't know if they call it a mistrial in Sweden or not, but there was a big outcry about the mistrial, so there was a second trial.
Okay.
And then they were acquitted, which seems about right to me because the evidence against them, even if they were the killers, I'm sorry,
so thin.
I can't support sending anybody to prison on the basis of that.
I mean, it's tough, right? Because like what we know about both of them is that like both of them have been accused of being kind of like horrible. Humans in their personal life, and also,
or at least possibly,
right? But I said accused.
They're accused. You're right.
They're accused of being like kind of horrible people in their personal life, and like also maybe had these pictures.
Yeah.
But that's it.
That's about it, and
but it's tough because I feel like both, right?
I know.
I don't know what I would do on the jury.
Think about having pictures like that. Like I have a friend who's a really good guy who did a tour in Iraq a while back.
Yeah, we talked about this before.
He showed me a bunch of pictures that he brought back from there, and some of them are frankly very disturbing.
Yeah, we talked about this last week.
Grody as hell, and he's a nice guy, but he has these pictures. And it's not because he's some sort of weird disaster porn freak. I think he just wants to document his time over there, and I think
that feels different, though.
Well, I think you probably get used to that kind of stuff too. You see enough of it,
sure.
And so for these guys, having all sorts of weird crime scene pictures is not that weird at all for them.
So
for us,
wait. Speaking of crime scene pictures. Was it Teet that was known to send stuff unsolicited to people?
Yeah, he did. He was supposed to sent like post-mortem reports with photos and everything unsolicited to people.
To people he knew?
Well, and I'm not sure. what kind of people. I mean, if you send them like to say you're people he knew, friends or whatever, but again, I'm not sure what the context was because, like for example, if it's a fellow mortician or doctor, or not mortician, but a fellow forensic
pathologist,
person or police person or something, and you just send them something like, "Wow, this is really interesting. Check out page 7" or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. Or it could mean he was sort of really,
sending it to his in-laws.
Or I don't know. Or it could mean to him it was kind of the equivalent of porn. I don't know. Or it might have just been showing stuff of professional interest to other people. I really don't know. Again, the case against these guys is just not great. Especially the one thing I didn't mention was just the whole idea. Well, you sort of touched on it.
Oh, yeah.
The whole idea.
We really went into that.
You're going to have your 18-year-old kid in front
18-month-old
kid, excuse me.
Yeah.
When you're carving up a corpse and chopping the head off. I find that hard to believe.
I agree.
For one, they don't sit still.
Yeah.
They don't sit still. They're going to be running around while you're trying to do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so so again, even though the case against them was not all that great, that doesn't necessarily mean they're innocent. I think most likely they didn't do it. There's probably some of this was grudges. I mean, the in-laws definitely had a grudge against them. Obviously, the ex-wife who alleged child abuse and all this had a grudge against her husband, Thomas Algen. And so it's hard to believe that the police gave that much weight and credibility to these people. And so I got to rule these two kind of out as suspects.
Everything just feels so circumstantial and mismanaged against them that I can't, with a good, clear conscience, say, "Oh yeah, I still think they did it."
It's tough though, again, right? Because it's like I do feel like they're like not good humans.
Well, I'm not.
But I also don't
doesn't
necessarily
mean jack squat.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, being a dirtbag doesn't mean that you're a murdering killer who dices people up in your spare time.
So, are there other theories here?
Well, there's a few. There's another theory would be, well, it's just somebody else entirely that we just haven't heard of. I mean, we got these suspects that we've named, 3 of them so far, but could have been another serial killer.
So prescient.
Yeah, I know. And that's kind of just punting, I know, but really, obviously, it could be. We don't know. We never will know. Actually,
we don't have any other theories of people who were firm.
Okay.
No, not at all. No, this is just some unknown Jack the Ripper kind of guy. But of course, the statute of limitations ran out in 2010. I think the original statute of
8 years ago for us, yeah.
Yeah, it was 25 years for murder in Sweden. Apparently, they've changed that. Now there is no statute of limitations.
Which I feel like makes sense.
That kind of does make sense.
Right? Like there are certain crimes where I'm like, you know what? That should never run out.
Yeah.
If we could prove
there's an expiration date on
there should never be, really.
Yeah, probably
certain crimes.
Probably not.
Maybe like you steal a candy bar when you're 8, like fine.
Oh yeah,
but
certain
maybe
crimes.
you like murder somebody and chop up their body. Maybe you never get away from that.
Wait, are you saying I'm off the hook for all those candy bars I stole as a kid?
I'm not saying that.
Damn.
Well, your body still has to deal with that. Not to mention your conscience, but yeah.
My conscience was fine with it. I was just like, I don't have to duck the law anymore.
Yeah,
I still do.
Sorry.
But yeah,
too bad you admitted it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna keep not filing my taxes. They'll never find me. I'm safe.
Let's say, okay,
good luck,
dude. Yeah, my only quibble about trying a case that's older than say 25 years is that memories are there, and say if they want to accuse me, how am I going to come up with an alibi? Where are they going to find any reliable witnesses? So in theory,
but I guess
trying
like
something that old is so hard.
Sure, but the way that trials seem to go, especially of like murder or something of that kind of seriousness, these days, juries seem to require, at least in the last 10 or so years, scientific evidence, right? So they seem to require DNA. Yeah. They seem to require kind of forensic evidence of some kind. So I mean, granted, they are fallible, but I would suspect that no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case against somebody, especially one as serious as this, without some kind of really solid forensic evidence.
Well, there is.
And that seems to not be as... Sure, I mean, like, there is some fallibility there.
There is
certainly
not just fallibility. There is outright prosecutorial abuse.
Absolutely, yeah.
Happen.
We talk about,
not usually, not typically, of course.
And we talk about, like, bite mark forensic evidence, that's not real, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of forensic evidence that's actively being proven.
Stuff that we used to consider infallible or at least highly reliable, like hair analysis.
Infallible.
Has been, sorry.
It's totally.
Has totally been shown to be, not quite so perfect as we thought it was.
Totally.
I mean, even
but
DNA
I feel like if somebody, but I do feel like if somebody were like, listen, within 1,000 to 1, this person's DNA was found on this body that was chopped up, you might want to at least launch an investigation.
Yeah, sure.